Hall McCollum. I'm sitting here with my dad, Dudley Hall, and you're joining us for an episode of Papa, I Have a Question. This is where I get to sit and ask my dad, a great Bible teacher and theologian, questions. I realize that over the years, I've had the great privilege and opportunity when I'm struggling with something or don't understand something theologically, whether it's from a sermon or my personal Bible study or just something that I heard, I have had a great resource my whole life to be able to go and ask him, what does this mean? And as an educator, I know that if one person has a question, usually someone else has that question. So I decided to invite you into some of my questions where I get to ask him some of my questions. So here we go. Papa, I have a question.
Okay.
I'm actually really excited because when I kind of thought this up of inviting people in to ask, to listen to us have these conversations, I really hoped that other people would start to ask questions too. And you did. And so this question actually comes from a friend in North Carolina. And she was asking about prodigal children. And what is our responsibility? What do we do when there's a prodigal child in the family? And obviously this is coming out of a place of sorrow and sadness and fear. I think there's probably fear involved there, but and she even referenced the verse, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And yet we live through these experiences where kids walk away from the Lord, or they doubt their faith, or whatever. And so does that mean we didn't train them up correctly? I mean, does that mean I made mistakes in training them up, and I've messed them up and they will not come back to the Lord? Or what is our response to be when we have those prodigals in our life?
Well, first of all, I want to sympathize with any parent who's had high hopes for their children, and then the children made some bad decisions and whatever. And the pain there is unlike any other. When they're young and they mess up, there's pain, but making a D in class is not exactly like what it looks like throwing away your destiny and whatever. So that's genuine pain, and the question comes out of a genuine hurting heart. And so there's a lot about that question, Karis. First of all, did you do anything wrong? Yes.
Am I doing stuff wrong?
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
God has rebellious children. Mm-hmm. And he didn't do anything wrong.
No.
And so the other thing is, I think we need to understand the nature of a proverb. Mm-hmm. A proverb is an observation of the way things generally are. Mm. And it is true that generally when you bend a twig in a certain way, it's going to grow in that way. That's just a part of the wisdom of creation and order and whatever. So when you bring up a child in the way he should go, generally speaking, they are bent toward that, and they won't ever lose that input. It is not a promise, that if you will read the right books and go by the certain rules and whatever, that the child's never going to make a mistake, or that they're not going to make some big mistakes, mm-hmm. and that they might be making mistakes for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it is the encouragement that we can affect our mm-hmm. children, and we should. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that we have control over them and we can program them. Mm. God has made all of us, including our children, in his image with the ability to choose and make decisions that have consequences. Mm. And so I think sometimes we parents, want to I want a guarantee. If I do these 4 things, this makes my
I
kid.
absolutely want that guarantee. I do.
Well, yeah.
Raising kids is scary.
Yes, it is. And none of us enjoy seeing our kids suffer. Of course, all of us have to deal with, okay, am I more embarrassed about my reputation of what my kids are doing, or am I concerned about the child? And I think most parents are concerned about the child.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
sure, there's an embarrassment or a shame that can grow out of my kids are living in a way that's I would never condone, but some mixed motive there. But most parents really, they're sad because their child is not enjoying life the way God designed it.
They want the best for their child, and they see their child not choosing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think, here's something. We all want our children to know God and to not just know about Him, not just have a theological concept of Him, not just have a perspective of Him, but to actually know Him intimately. And God is a God of mercy. Mm-hmm. The only way you can know a God of mercy is to need mercy.
Mm-hmm. That's a good perspective.
And so if my child is ever going to know what it means to be forgiven, they're going to have to sin.
Yeah.
If they're ever going to know what it means for God to pick up the weak and give them strength, they're going to have to be weak.
Yeah. I'm reminded of the phrase, you can't out-sin the will of God. I think that's true for us as parents, right? As a parent, I can't mess up so bad that God's not in charge of my child's life.
Yeah.
I can mess up. I can misunderstand things and teach the wrong things, but I can't mess up so bad that God's not going to have His will in my child's life. And my child can't sin so bad that it messes up the will of God.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think, but this isn't the road I want my child to walk, right? I don't want them to have to walk this hard path. I don't want this to be their story. I don't want this to be my story.
Yeah.
But God is still good in that. And yeah. Yeah.
So, we say to our kids, I want you to learn wisdom. Mm-hmm. Okay, you get wisdom usually by making mistakes and finding out, here's the correction, and here was a better way, here's a higher way. So I wanted you to experience the mercy of God. I just don't want you to ever need the mercy of God.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. So God says, I love those kids more than you do, which is, we're like, really?
It's hard to believe, yeah.
Yeah, why don't you let me control them and they'll be fine? And God said, nah, you're not all that good at that.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult thing for parents and grandparents, for parents to just back off and say, you know what, I can't be the perfect parent, but I can love that child. Mm-hmm. And the one aspect of God's nature I can display is that you can't do enough to make me stop loving you. You can do everything that would break my heart, that would ruin your life, that would whatever, but you cannot make me stop loving you. And if they can know that, then they know something of the character of God. And so I know that doesn't answer all the questions that are embedded in that question, but anyway, that's a perspective.
Yeah. Well, maybe this isn't the most feel-good, Papa, I have a question we've ever had, but it actually is really good news, right?
Yeah.
Because God's still good, and we still get to trust Him, and we still get to experience Him in a deeper way. So
yeah.
we lean into that.
And most parents that are going to be watching this, I think, at some point gave their kids to the Lord. Like, I dedicate my child to you. I give my child to you. He took that seriously.
Yeah.
They're his children.
Yeah.
And he has plenty of mercy, and he can put things back together. And we just have to be willing for them to have the story that God wants them to have, not the one I want them to have.
Yeah. Yeah. And to get that mercy ourselves as parents and go, yeah, I messed up, but God's mercy is there for me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say this, messing up as a parent doesn't disqualify you from being a parent. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, it's all right to go to your children and say, I realize now that looking back, I tried to control too much, or I did so and so. And I didn't know it at the time, but I do now, and I want you to forgive me, and hopefully you won't make that same mistake.
Yeah.
But if you do, there's grace.
Yeah, there's grace.
Yeah.
There's grace. That's good. Thanks, Papa. Thanks for joining us for Papa, I Have a Question. Send me your questions too.